So another thing to look at is illumination map. Now this is something that is pretty very useful. This is essentially something that is very useful in production and gets very overlooked. So first of all, there's a few things to look at. When we go to render out a frame, I'm just going to grab a random frame to begin with, but if we have smoke, I'm just going to render this, and we'll notice this little box pops up. And this is more applicable when we're dealing with shadows and everything, but it tends to take a while to render. And when we're doing really high res sims, this takes a long time to calculate. And so essentially what it's doing is it's building a map to write the disk, like a shadow map if you're dealing with normal lights. And this will help with the illumination by kind of storing that in RAM. Now we can turn illumination map off. By doing that, it means it's going to render it ahead of time rather than baking out a map and then applying that as illumination. Instead, it just renders it raw. And this means that our rendering is going to take a lot longer. As you can see, it's much slower. So the way to work usually is you have illumination map turned on, which will essentially make things calculate a lot quicker because it generates that map to figure out where to calculate the illumination. A couple of things to keep in mind is that as long as you don't go to a new frame, then I can bump up my illumination and it doesn't need to calculate it again because it's done it already when I go to render. So I'll point this out in a moment, but basically what we want to do is I click on the read write to disk. Now as long as like I said, I don't change a frame or anything, then it's going to calculate it once and it's going to write that to disk. And that means that if I go to re-render this frame again, there is no calculating the map. It's just going to straight up render the effect, which is a lot faster. So usually you do this when you're dealing with like really high res sims because it's going to save you a lot of calculation time. And I'll explain this in a moment more thoroughly, but basically by enabling the read to write to disk, it means then on this one frame, as long as I don't resimulate or delete my fume data or anything like that, then I can make adjustments to my sim and it will render this a lot quicker. Now this means I can go on my rendering tab and I can start playing around with the color of my effect or whatever I want to do, and I don't need to worry about longer rendering times. It just renders, it doesn't have to calculate all the illumination information again. The cool thing is my multiplier. Okay, so as you saw, I can adjust this and it's overall it's going to get the light information and bump it up. So if I wanted to overall adjust how bright all the lights on my scene are, in this case there's only one, but all the lights in general, I can bump this up and it will blow up the illumination. So this is good if I wanted to make my daylight scene a little bit brighter. I don't need to play with all the lights. I can just make them all affect my my simulation shader altogether. Now at the same time there's also this undersample threshold. Now if you turn that off, you'll notice that the rendering does take a little bit longer to calculate. At least like this won't affect the simulation if I have read write on. In other words, if I've already written to disk, then this won't affect anything, but I'll turn that off for a second, or I can clear the cache, but then it's going to recalculate it again. So this is something that that when I have off, what it's going to do is it's going to calculate every single voxel, and it's going to try and figure out and draw the illumination map for every single voxel. So it tends to be a lot slower because it's going through a lot more information, literally tens of millions of voxels. So it takes a lot longer to write the illumination map. Once it's done it, then it's done and it'll render smoothly. But what we can do is we turn this on, and by default it is on. And what it does is it allows us to control how many voxels we're actually sampling to build this illumination map. So in other words, by turning it on, we can say, okay, well, how about you skip every third or fourth or whatever amount of voxels. So in other words, we'll calculate 1, and then in a square radius it'll ignore 1, 2, 3, 4 or whatever. So we can crank this up to get a larger range, and this is a voxel range. So we can crank this up to be a higher value if we want. And what's going to happen is it'll sample 1 voxel, and then in each axis it'll skip a few and sample another one. And it'll read that and make a general light map based on all the information. And we can make that as high as we want until we begin to notice artifacts. So it just means we can calculate a light map a lot quicker based on generalizing the average light map per voxel. In other words, we can get a lot more information generalized based on just using every couple of voxels to calculate this. So this controls the distance of it to generate it. So in other words, we get quicker calculations. Now, that's good to know because it means we can bump that up and it'll average it out. Now, as long as we have a high enough resolution, then that won't be too big a deal, and it means we write it a lot quicker. Now, by turning on read write to disk, I've already got it written to disk, so it doesn't really write one out. What I can do though is clear the cache, and then when I render it, it's going to need to rebuild one. Again, we have it skipping a fair few, like 12 times what we were before, so it does calculate a lot quicker. But once it's written to disk, then I don't need to calculate that again. It does it on the fly. Now, the information is written to disk in my Fume directory. So as we can see, we have this frame here, frame 56, and based on the file name and everything else, it's called .fim. Now, unless I change, like I've re-rendered my simulation, it will continue to read frame 56 from disk, and it's stored in the same directory as where I store my Fume effects data, or FXD file. So this is good if you're going to do a lot of tweaking and rendering. What I can do is I can do my simulation when I'm happy with it. I can turn read write to disk. I might set this to maybe 3. More if I'm doing a higher res sim, because there'll be a lot more Fume data at the sim, so I can bump that up to kind of optimize the calculation time. Then I can go and do a render. Okay, and the first time it renders it, whether it's network rendering or whatever, as long as it can see the Fume data directory, which it should anyway, because that's where it's reading the Fume data from. Then once it's done, and if I don't re-simulate or I don't delete any of the Fume data or the FIM information, then, and FIM is just Fume illumination map, then what's going to happen is if I make additional tweaks, like I adjust a new light rig and put it into the shot, or I adjust my illumination map, my lighting, my shader, whatever I want to do, or additional render passes through the channel data, or whatever I want to do, whenever I render them, they're going to render it much quicker because they're going to read the illumination map from here. So this is a much quicker way to work, and it's pretty important as a way to optimize your sims.